Hey everybody, it's Brian here, and I'm currently putting some of my courses online, and I'm trying to do it in a way that's effective for the students, but also really efficient for me. So I thought I would share some of those tips with you. If you're interested, keep watching. So for me, building an online course is not just simply taking what I do face to face and putting that online. It has a completely different approach and structure. So the first thing I do is think about my course and how it points to career or industry in some way. Then I'm going to make a list of the big tasks. These are things that students need to do or things they need to know for sure that have a direct connection to that career or industry. So I am not listing off my course outcomes here. Sometimes these tasks will cover off multiple outcomes. So I'm going to list off 6 random tasks that I think students might do in a classroom that do have a direct connection to the work world in some way. Building business plans, marketing reports, background checks, filing taxes, calculating payroll, or evaluating employee performance. And so I think these are real things that students do in the real world that I could also do in a classroom. Now I will pull out my course outcomes and just take a look and see if these tasks are covering off some of my course outcomes just to see if I'm on the right track. Next thing I'll do is move to online assessments. All right, graphic organizers are a fun online assessment tool. It allows students to be creative, to explain things and represent what they know and understand. I'll build one really quickly to give you an example. Let's say I'm doing number 3, background check. So I can build a simple graphic organizer, step 1, interview, call references, check social media, and a drug test. I don't think the drug test is real. I couldn't think of the 4th thing. But anyway, it's a simple way to represent something that I want to explain or know. And then I could either add more by writing about this or talking about it. And that's kind of takes me to the next one, which is having an interview. Interviews, I've been using them a lot with students. They're really effective. I have a Zoom call or a team meeting with the student, and I can ask them questions, or they can explain some work that they've done. They show me their work and they're talking their way through it, and I can grade it right there live with them if I want to. I can set a time limit on the interview so that the student's not fumbling around, but they know exactly what they're talking about. I can give them questions ahead of time if I want, but it's a cool way to talk with the students and really find out what they know, especially if you're worried about them cheating. Sometimes when they hand in a piece of writing and somebody else might have written it. Here, an interview, you're really getting a feel for the student and what they know. Sometimes I'll combine these assignments. So if I give a graphic organizer assignment, suddenly I have 30 or 40 graphic organizers to mark. So what I'll do is I'll have every student hand in their graphic organizer, but then I'll put them in the groups of 3 or 4 and say, now you 3 pick your best graphic organizer, and then we'll have an interview. You'll show me the one graphic organizer, and we'll have a discussion with 3 or 4 people about that graphic organizer where I can ask questions and get to see if you really know what you're talking about and give you a grade for it. Okay, writing, I think we're all familiar with. There's low stakes and high stakes writing. So low stakes writing would be simple forums, discussions, chats online, post something and then let people comment underneath, or writing a simple email back and forth conversation. You can even grade those if you really want to as an assignment. And then high stakes writing is things like documents, letters, reports, essays. If I was going to do a high stakes writing online, I would highly recommend that you have benchmarks along the way. So don't just say, here, write me an essay and hand it in a month. You're almost always going to get a surprise. Either they're off topic or they've plagiarized or something like that. Instead, I would have the students create a folder, or you create that folder online where they have their piece of writing and you have access to the folder, they have access, and you are watching their progress as they go, setting benchmarks like I want to see the topic by this date and outline by this date, and you're getting a feel for their research and whether or not they're plagiarizing, and then you can check for those things before the final due date. That's what I would do with high stakes. All right, number 4, voice recordings. They're fun as well. You can send out the questions that you want students to discuss and then give a time limit. Everybody has a phone and a voice recording app. They can record their conversation or how they want to explain the answers to your questions, and they can send it to you. Lots of times they're going to record that multiple times because they keep messing up. It just makes the learning better, right? They're practicing doing it over and over. Similar to voice recordings is going to be video recordings. They can record themselves doing something
or even presenting. So you have students in class doing like a PowerPoint presentation. They can do that still, and they can record themselves giving that PowerPoint presentation. I've already done this with students. It works really well. They can even have an audience of one person if you want. But again, I know they're going to sometimes submit their fourth recording instead of their first original recording. It doesn't matter. I think if they do it multiple times, they're getting that practice, and that's fine. Number 6, you can do interactive games. This works really well if they have like things they have to memorize, like definitions of words and things. Moodle has games, and they can kind of learn content that way. You can do your online tests. You can take your paper and pencil tests that you currently have, and you can get them onto online in Moodle or whatever, and they can write tests online. You can even monitor activities. I did this during the COVID situation. I had students, I needed to see their monitor and what they were doing on the monitor and make sure that they weren't going to some software that I didn't want them to access. So I did a Zoom call. They set their phone up behind them. I literally watched over their shoulder as they worked on the computer, working on a specific software. And so I was monitoring their activity online. All right, and the last one is just any file submissions. So students can be working on, those tax returns or calculating payroll. They can take pictures of their work or do it with some kind of software and just submit that file to you online as well. Okay, once again, I'm going to pull out my course outcomes and just check and see how I'm doing and try and marry all 3 of these things together. So it's going to look something like this. I've got my task, I've got my online assessment, and sometimes it's more than one. Like for the business plan, maybe it takes an interview and a file submission, but then I'm checking off which course outcomes those meet. And if there's any leftover course outcomes, then I might need to add a task and an assignment or an assessment. And so everything so far is kind of just done in the planning stages. I haven't put anything online, but here's where it starts, is right here. I understand that these 6 tasks are going to be the sections for my online course. So I'm not going to create sections in my online course based on chapters of a textbook or certain theories that I want to cover. They're based on the tasks, the major tasks that I want my students to do or be able to explain. All right, I know how many sections I'm going to create. They're based on the tasks. Now I start by explaining an assessment, not theory. If I start explaining theory in my online course, it turns into a mountain. I've got articles and things to read and videos and support, and my course is getting bigger and bigger, and the students have to wade through that theory. So what I want to do is start first with the assignment or the assessment, and I start to explain that. And then my next step is to add a continuum or sample assessments with grades. Most of my students have questions about the assignment. They don't understand how to do it. And when I start with these 2 things, it reduces the amount of questions right off the bat. Okay, so a continuum is simply just examples of the assignment with some kind of feedback and marking system. So here's what it takes to get an A, and I explain it in text and then maybe show a sample of that assignment, and here's what a B looks like, or a C or a D. So they get an idea of what I want out of the assessment or the assignment. And then lots of times they can start. Like if you think about that background check, sometimes students have some kind of prior knowledge, and even if you didn't have any theory on your course and you only put your assignments on there, sometimes students can actually get to work because they already have an idea, especially if you're providing those samples of where to start. All right, I've got step 1 and 2 online, and sometimes you can start a course with just that, only the assessments online and the grading schemes and no theory. And then they come to class to get that theory and discussion. But if everything needs to be online, then yeah, we start to add the theory. Now, you can do it in 2 ways. You can front load the theory, or you can let the students help you discover the theory. And I've done that as well. You start the course, they get stuck on the assessment. It's time to go do some learning about that. So students go find some resources, I'll go find some resources, and I'll add that to my course to make that course more robust. But the point is we're adding task-related theory only. So the theory has a direct connection to the assessment or the assignment, and the assignment has a direct connection to the task that's in the work world. So it's a very logical pathway, and it keeps my course really condensed. I don't have mountains and mountains of theory that students need to wade through. The theory is very, very specific to the assessment and the task. That's where I would start. Hopefully something there was helpful for you. Thanks for listening.